Hello everyone. Today we will going to understand a problem statement that how do you execute a single test case multiple times in parallel. So let's think on the below problem. Okay. So the problem is if you want to run a test method 50 times and it takes about 1 minute per run. So what is the most efficient way to run the same method 50 times? This is my first question. And my second question is what is the approximate time required to run a same method 50 times? Okay, so just pause the video and think for 10 seconds and just write down in the comment section what do you thought about these two questions and what is the solution for these two questions. Okay, so we will discuss the solution in detail in this entire video. So just watch till the end of this video to understand more about the problem. So today we are going to understand three things. The first agenda is what exactly is the thread pool size attribute, when will the thread pool size attribute will be used, and third is how do you use the thread pool size attribute. So first with the problem, what is thread pool size attribute? This attribute informs TestNG how many threads should TestNG spawn for the current @TestAnnotate method. The meaning of this is that whenever you have to run a single test method multiple times with multiple threads, you can use this attribute. Okay. Now currently I am talking about only of about one method. Okay, and this attribute is relevant only when you use this attribute with invocation count. Okay, so if you try to use thread pool size attribute without invocation count, there is no use. You cannot run the same method multiple times in parallel. If you want to run the same test case multiple times, obviously you can use the invocation count attribute. But if you want the run the same test case multiple times and in parallel, you have to use thread pool size attribute as well. When to use this attribute? Use this attribute if you want to run the same test method simultaneously with numerous iterations and if you want to perform the test in parallel. So if you want to use this attribute for a multiple iteration, obviously you can do this with the invocation count attribute, but using the invocation count attribute, you cannot use this part to perform the test cases in parallel. For that, you needed a part of thread pool size attribute. Okay, so on the first problem which I asked on the starting of this video, so the most efficient way to run the identical 50 test cases 50 times using the invocation count attribute rather than rewriting the test method 50 times. This is the solution of the first problem, and the approximate time required to run a same method 50 times. For this problem, the solution will be there in the demo part. So just watch the demo to learn the solution. So how do you use the thread pool size attribute? And now we have a demo time. Okay, how to use this attribute and how it is beneficial, and you will get the answers of both the questions which we discussed in the starting of this video. So just to save all of your time, I have created one class parallel testing 1. In that parallel testing 1, there is a test method. There I have written before test and after test. In this before test and after test, I am just taking the start time and the end time, and at the after test I am printing also that how much time it would take total to execute a single test case. Okay, and if you see this method A, I am just writing it method A for more it is easy to understand method A, and it is like first of all I am printing the current thread which is going to execute this method A, and then I'm printing launch Google, and it is just opening the web browser and it is just launching it. Okay, this is the entire test case which we are doing. Okay, so if I just run this test case, let me run this test case quickly to show you how much time currently it is taking. So it just launch it. If you see, current thread ID is 1, launch Google. So it launched Google, and so you can see Google was launched, and it takes around 13 seconds to to do the entire end-to-end test. And if I write here test invocation count to, suppose let's use 3 here, invocation count to 3, okay, and let me run this test case. So what it will do, it will run this test case 3 times. Okay, so if you just look to the console, current thread ID is 1 and it launches the Google. Okay, then my older browser was closed and then new browser was opened with current thread ID 1 and it launches Google. Okay, and it earlier it also current thread ID is 1 and launch Google, and now at the third time it is the same. So it means using the invocation count attribute, we are running the same test case 3 times. Okay, and at the end of this test case you will also see that it took around 36 seconds for all these 3 test cases. So earlier we saw that when we run this test case at a single time, it take around 13 seconds, and now it is taking around 36 seconds for the same code, because we are running that same test case 3 times. Okay, now if I have to run this test case 3 times, then the time also increase, because we are running the single test case multiple times. Okay, so we can do the parallelism in these test cases. Okay, now how to do parallel, how to run this test case parallel. Okay, so to run this test case in a parallel, you can use ThreadPoolSize. Okay, and you can make it ThreadPoolSize to, let me use 3. So here ThreadPoolSize denotes that we have to run this test case with a 3 different threads. Okay, I've used invocation count to 3 and ThreadPoolSize to also 3, and let me rerun this test case to show you how the ThreadPoolSize is working. So you can see it launches 3 browsers. Okay, and current thread ID is 15, 16 and 17. It means there were 3 threads which were launched in parallel, and it is launching the Google. And once the Google was launched and the driver were quit, so it took around only 18 seconds. Okay, so we reduced the test execution time using the ThreadPoolSize attribute. And the second part is that we are running this a single test case in parallel instead of entire class, or instead we don't have to run each method in a parallel part. We can just running this a single test case in a parallel way by using an invocation count attribute. Earlier I also told you that if I don't use the invocation count attribute, then there is no use of ThreadPoolSize 3. Let me just run the test case and see if it is correct or not. So when I launch this, it launched current thread IDs to 1 and launch Google without the invocation count. Okay, because I know that this test case will run only at one time. So it took only 13 seconds. So it means that without without invocation count, ThreadPoolSize is not relevant. So whenever you have to use the ThreadPoolSize, make sure to write invocation count, else it is of no use. Okay, so that's all from my end today about ThreadPoolSize. Thank you everyone.